This is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to the September edition of my year-long podcast series on creating a more effective compliance program. Each month during this year, I'm focusing on a different topic which will help you create a more effective compliance program. And for the month of September, I'm going to focus on innovation in compliance. First, a word from this month's sponsor, Oversight Systems.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Oversight's artificial intelligence platform takes a comprehensive, multidimensional approach to identifying anomalies that are suggestive of bribery and corruption. Our analytics look across various dimensions such as employees, attendees, vendors, and countries over an extended time period. This enables us to identify employees exhibiting patterns of potentially improper behavior or collusion that are difficult to detect by auditing a single transaction at a time. Based on the analysis, employees or vendors engaged in risky behavior are presented in a risk-ranked format for easy examination. Remediation activities and the underlying root causes are automatically documented to drive continuous improvement. Oversight clients can easily demonstrate to the board, and if ever necessary to the regulatory authorities, that proactive monitoring of business transactions for anti-bribery and corruption risk is an integral part of company operations. With Oversight's Insights on Demand, you can have a best practice approach to identify possible violations in travel and entertainment and procure-to-pay programs. For more information, visit us at oversightsystems.com.
Innovation indeed. I hope you will join me for the entire one-month series on innovation. I'm going to take a look at artificial intelligence, social media, leadership, and structural innovations. I think you will find it a fascinating month, and at the end of the month, you will have multiple tools and techniques which you can utilize to make your compliance program not only more effective, but operationalized, more efficient, and helping you to create greater profitability for your organization. This podcast, 1 Month to a Better Compliance Program, is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Day 17, Using Employees to Innovate in Compliance. How do you tap into your largest resource of innovation for your compliance program, which is, of course, your employee base? This topic was explored in an MIT Sloan Management review article entitled How to Catalyze Innovation in Your Organization. The tenets put forth by the authors certainly apply to the compliance realm. The authors posit that companies can fuel the emergence of new ideas by understanding and tapping the power of employee networks. The tenets and concepts articulated provide several useful insights for a CCO or compliance professional. The first is that companies need to create context that allows people, information, and ideas to flow across different groups. The second identifies a group of employees who act as brokers and who create bridges across groups within a company. These brokers should work with central connectors who are well connected within one subgroup to form powerful networks. Finally, when facing a problem, innovators should engage their network early. Interestingly, as with the ever-dwindling myth of the rogue employee in FCPA enforcement, the authors note, the tales of a lone inventor with a blinding insight are unhelpful myths when it comes to corporate innovation. Successful service, product, or process innovation within large, complex organizations are very much a social phenomenon. A successful CCO will know that they need to leverage employee networks for both innovation and communications of compliance initiatives. The key insight is a division of three social networkings within an organization. A key catalyst emerging innovation is identifying and positioning innovators within the organization. It is the use of these networks that can move innovation back up to the top of the organization and communications down through a company as well. So what are these three subgroups the authors have identified? The first is brokers. Brokers are the group of employees which build bridges from one group to another within and without an organization or outside. This allows them to act as critical channels of information and ideas. Brokers offer three competitive advantages: broader access to diverse information, early access to new information, and control over the diffusion of the information. Yet more than simply acting as conduits, brokers facilitate this discovery process through their social connections and determine how and when these insights can be introduced to other parts of the organization. The creation of adaptive space enables brokers to more actively connect and navigate beyond their local subgroups to explore new possibilities. The second group is central connectors. This is a group who provides group cohesion for implementation of innovation and communications going forward. Group cohesion represents how connected individuals are to one another within a group. A group is considered cohesive when many redundant connections exist among group members. That is, the likelihood of any individual within a group being connected to another individual within the group is quite high. As a result, cohesive groups can quickly share information and generally operate with high levels of trust. These central connectors can take an idea and move it into the more disparate groups to diffuse both ideas and communications. In short, it is often these central connectors who drive an innovation to success. While some industries and companies resist rotation for a CCO or compliance professional, it would appear to be the better practice to use rotation as a catalyst for innovation and change. The authors noted one example where employees were moved between projects every 3 years or so, which allowed knowledge to flow more easily within the organization. That company provided the space which enabled active interplay between brokers and connectors. And finally, the third group identified by the authors is energizers, who can work to trigger the interest and engagement of others and unleash the passion necessary for bold innovations to advance. The authors believe that many factors can drive this, including network energy, enthusiasm, co-creation, and active engagement. Energizers challenge those within a company to think more boldly than they would within their own subgroups and create a continuous mindset as innovation progresses. Finally, energizers are able to fundamentally engage in interactions, inspiring others to devote more time and energy to the initiative. The reputation of an energizer spreads quickly across a network, attracting others to aggregate multiple ideas into bolder, integrated concepts that are more likely to succeed. Energizers connect with individuals who have expertise or backgrounds, and these differences can be embraced as elements essential to the creation of bolder innovation. There are 5 steps around innovation for the CCO to consider going forward. Number 1, tap into adjacent expertise and a broad network early in problem solving. Almost universally, the more successful innovators do not immediately solve a problem they were given, as they were likely to ask questions and engage in the network early to help them think about the problem differently and to find people with tangentially relevant expertise who might give them different perspective on solutions. 2, make early interactions with beneficials to others. Innovators drew ideas to and from others, not fostering off their own visions on coworkers. This is directly attributable to sharing and exchanging a more collegial approach. 3, spread ownership of the idea and seek feedback. This is the point which lays bare the myth of the lone innovator working in a closeted office. Indeed, the authors note, among our interviewees, trying to develop an idea in isolation until it was seen as bulletproof was a sure recipe for failure. The more successful innovators made decisions on whom to include and how to run initial meetings in ways that shape both the innovation and the network. 4, develop a prototype early. Be open in the process, as it insists on pushing a prototype out as early as possible because early prototypes provide a proof of concept. Even more important is a working prototype dramatically changes the nature of the conversation and engagement within the network. Communicate the early stage solution and then iterate within the network. As more stakeholders and end users give input, ensure that your team is prepared to make incremental changes, test, and adapt quickly. That sounds suspiciously like the OODA feedback loop, which I heartily recommend. There are always pockets and groups within an organization which resist change, and that's often true in the compliance profession as well. Often this is one of a CCO's most difficult tasks. Yet the authors have laid out a clear path to overcoming such resistance, and it is equally applicable to moving compliance communications through an organization. Using central connectors and energizers, a CCO, the broker, can get the message of compliance moved faster in a more complete and enthusiastic manner. Finally, this will go a long way towards operationalizing your compliance program. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, I think this is one instance where one takeaway really summarizes the entire discussion today, but it's only one of three, but it's still very important. And that's employees can be the greatest advocates for your compliance program. Compliance is not a top-down exercise. It's not a lawyer sitting up in an office making decrees or pronouncements. Employees can be your greatest advocates. Employee engagement is one of the most effective and cost-effective ways, direct and cost-effective ways, to operationalize your compliance regime going forward. And finally, number three, use the 5-step approach I've outlined in today's podcast to facilitate greater employee engagement and compliance. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you again for listening to this episode of 1 Month to More Effective Innovation and Compliance. If you've listened to this podcast on iTunes, I hope that you would rate our podcast, as would help in our rankings and help get the word out about the only monthly podcast series in compliance, which will help you create a better compliance program. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This is Tom Fox. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.